Pittsburgh Steelers.
What a game the Pittsburgh Steelers had. They win at Heinz Field 33-18. It wasn't a pretty game, especially early on, but the Pittsburgh Steelers late in the game would definitely take advantage of the game, and they would win it 33-18. Lots to talk about. James Conner, I think that's the first note where we have to start. But even more than that, let's just go by quarter and by how this. Let's just get into some stats coming into this game. Coming into this game, I believe the Steelers had almost 40 points in the minus in the first quarter. The Steelers were negative 40 in allowing opponents to score in the first quarter, and compared to how many points they scored in the first quarter. Minus 40. Then in the second, third, and fourth quarters combined, the Steelers were plus 70, and that showed up today. In the first quarter, the Steelers were losing 6-0, 2 field goals, and then the Browns kicker did miss a field goal, so he would be 2 for 3 early on, but 6-0. And one of the reasons that they even got 6 points in the first quarter was because Ben Roethlisberger would throw an interception. He had a rough start, but it wasn't really his fault. Ben Roethlisberger's pass was intercepted because it was tipped off of a receiver that should have caught the pass. It wasn't really dropped. It was tipped, I guess, by him. It hit his helmet or his shoulder pads or his hands, I don't remember, and went off of him, and it was intercepted. So rough start for Pittsburgh, 6-0 to end the first quarter. But after that, the Steelers got back on track with 2 touchdowns to AB. One was a deep ball, and then the other one with about 10 seconds to go in the half, I believe they got in for the touchdown. 8 seconds was on the clock after the touchdown to AB, like a 2-yard pass. So AB came in clutch in the second quarter, and Ben really got going after the first quarter. So let's break it down even more. James Conner had himself a day, 190 all-purpose yards, and for most of the game, especially I think before the last Browns drive, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but before the last Browns drive, James Conner had 190 all-purpose yards, and he had more yards than the whole Browns team combined before the last drive where it was garbage time. The score was 33-12. And then that drive they would get a touchdown on 4th down. That doesn't really matter. Let's break it down and talk about how James Conner did it, because right now I think we don't need Le'Veon Bell. James Conner had 24 carries for 146 yards and 2 touchdowns, and a lot of those yards came on the last drive, but even going into the last drive, he had 90 yards in the whole game. He demolished, especially, he really wore down this defense on the last drive. He was just getting play after play, like I said, especially the last drive, 8+ yards every single carry the last drive. I really think his shortest carry on that drive was about 5 yards, maybe it was 8 yards. It wasn't anything less than that. He just ran through the defense. It was no competition the last drive. And then to end the drive, the last part of the game, he got a huge run for about 20 yards, I think it was, for a touchdown. He demoralized this defense, and 33-18 was the final score. Again, 146 rushing yards, 66 receiving yards. He had himself a day, and this makes me think that Le'Veon Bell doesn't need to be here. James Conner is making the same amount of that Le'Veon Bell would make in the whole season in just one game. So if I explain that, I'll explain that better. James Conner is making about this. James Conner is making just shy of $1 million in the whole season. Le'Veon Bell makes $855K a game. Take that into perspective, and you can decide who the Steelers should keep as far as cap space goes and going into next week if Bell comes back. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. That is next week if he comes back. So now that we talked about James Conner, the star of the Pittsburgh Steelers offense, let's talk about how we got to the fourth quarter, because it wasn't pretty, especially the first quarter. I said that we had a turnover, and then another Steelers running back, it was the Steelers' second string running back as of right now. As you could say, it's the third string. I believe it was Ridley who caught the ball from Ben Roethlisberger and fumbled the ball, and the Browns would recover. Then, I also want to talk about how the Steelers got a safety on the Browns. That was great. It was a flag in the end zone for holding on the Browns. Otherwise, we would have sacked him if they didn't hold us. But then what happened after that was the kickoff. I don't know what exactly was going through their mindset at the Steelers return team, because not one of the Steelers return team tried to get the ball. They just let it go right past them, and I think they thought it was like a punt because it was after a safety, but it's still a live ball. It's still like a kickoff. If the other team that punts the ball or kicks off the ball recovers the ball. It's a fumble, and they acted like they're just going to go down it. I don't know. There were about five Browns guys recovering the fumble, live ball, and none of the Steelers even attempted to do it. They were all confused. I don't even know what to say about that. That was pretty sad. But one more thing to note, coming out of this game is the Steelers outscored. After the Steelers were losing 6-0, they outscored Cleveland 33-6 before the last drive. And after the last drive, it would be 33-12. That's a pretty dominant win, I would say, after the first quarter. So coming in, we were horrible in the first quarter, negative 37 points. Coming into this game, we were plus 70 in the second, third, and fourth quarter. And that showed up today. Steelers win this game 33-18. Great game. Next week, we head to Baltimore to take on the 4-4 Ravens, who actually got demolished today. So I think the Steelers will win that game, but it's going to be a great game. It's going to be in Baltimore, so we'll see who wins that one. I'll see y'all next week. Until then, go Steelers!